by a top manufacturer and distributor of rigging and wear products serving industries in oil and gas, construction and transportation sectors, and Harbor Club Hotel, which is in San Lucia, a premier resort. If you're ever in San Lucia, just send an email to Wes. He'll hook you up. I mean that. And look, he has had incredible accolades over time, right? So he's been the recipient of the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2009. He's received designation with ICD. Was the recipient of the Vice Chancellor's Award in 2017. Canadian Business Magazine named him one of the most powerful business people in 2016. Toronto Life Magazine voted him among the 50th most influential Torontonians in 2020. Look, I can go on, but then you'll just hear from me all night. And I'll just say that the latest award for him was the Canadian Business Leader Award of the Year in 2022. So above and beyond the business work, he is a generous man, leveraging his business success to benefit others. With a number of impactful charitable initiatives, he's part of Sick Kids Foundation, Pathways to Education, Toronto International Film Festival, and the Black Academy. He's just done so much over time, right? And so we are very honored to have, and I think his family is on their way. But his father, Leonard Hall, will be here with his wife, Christine. And like I told you, everything that he does, right? He also has 5 children on top of everything else. And so Brenton, Skyla, and Rogan will be here with us tonight. Darian and Kiana could not join us. So this night is also special because of the people we have here from across Scarborough, including youth from UTC's Imani program, which is just celebrated the 17th year anniversary. It's an inspirational program where Black UTC, yes. It's an inspirational program where Black UTC students work to support youth from a number of East Scarborough schools, including Pearson HS, where Wes attended. A shout out to our Pearson alumni. Also, a special thank you to Toronto Community Housing for including youth from their Be Bold entrepreneurship program. It's an incredible to see so many young people here tonight. And look, the only last thing I'll say is that this is home for me. So driving out here for an hour and 20 minutes was a pleasure. When I first immigrated to Canada in 1994 on August 14th, Scarborough was home for me. And so it's great to be back. I haven't been back here for a little bit. And so thank you for welcoming me. I will pass the mic now to Neil Joshi, who's an incredible contributor to the world and to Black North and to this university. So Neil, over to you.
Thank you, Dahabo. So I had to pinch myself this morning to know that this was happening, because whenever we've connected, it's been downtown. But to see this happen at home in many ways for both of us is a gift. But in Scarborough, we do things right. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that this land on which the University of Toronto operates, for thousands of years, it's been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. And I know we've heard a number of these land acknowledgements. I feel really proud to be at a campus where we actually have people who lead incredible activities. So I want to give a shout out to Kelly, Juanita, and Brittany, who just last week actually had our very first Indigenous vendor market. So this campus lives the values on a day-to-day, so it's an honor. And as a kid who grew up in Galloway, just around the corner, I think those of us here in Scarborough, we know we're very lucky because we have deep Indigenous roots in this region in particular. That's benefited a lot of us. So I wanted to just make sure that we acknowledge that accurately. Now, of course, this is a legendary night for a number of reasons. But 2 reasons I'm going to start off with first that you may or may not have known. If I say the word King Turbo, can you make some noise? And why is that legendary? Let's just go over the history. King Turbo in Scarborough, 1989, 2-time World Sound Clash champions, taking on the world from Scarborough. Out in Japan, out in Switzerland, out in New York City. 3 guys from Scarborough, Andrew from Pearson itself, taking this region around the world. So big up King Turbo. And Wes doesn't know this yet, but part of King Turbo's success is, if you're young, dub plates are a thing. And the reason why King Turbo is worldwide known is because they have some of the best dub plates. So everyone from Maxi Priest to Shaggy, to KRS-One, custom dub plates. So we might even have to get the first Dragon's Den dub plate in the world. What do you think? And then I also want to give it a shout out to, if you enjoyed the patties, make some noise. So although Patty Gal is located in Durham, the heart is in Scarborough, built here as well. Our owner and operator actually also went to Pearson and was on Wes's Street as a kid here at youth in Melbourne. So big up Patty Gal representing. And Carlene, it's standout because there's a lot of patty shops, but they have 10 plus flavors. Aki and saltfish, curry goat, vegan patties. You carry it all. You carry it all. Okay, but I know that you came here to be inspired tonight, and I hope we can deliver on that. I'm pretty sure we can, because we're in Scarborough, and that's what we do here. But I know what many of you are thinking first and foremost. Wes, I'm going to start off with the hard hitters. As you know, Scarborough Mendham, we care about what's on our feet. So just walk me through what's on your feet.
How about how about now? Okay, so all my Pearson people are like, when Dahab was talking about all the accolades and all the accomplishments and stuff, they're like, no man, I know Wes to do that. They're like, because those who went to high school with me in Pearson know that I spent a lot of time in the cafeteria and in the change room playing dominoes. Lots and lots of dominoes. And I always win, man. I always. So they're like, okay, so when did he spend time or find time to do all the things that he's doing? Well, I guess I grew up after a while. And after growing up, I go, man, I got to put these dominoes away. And now I play a different type of game, right? My game now is, on Bay Street. And those domino games actually, allow me to play the games I'm playing right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I do. And for those who read the book, you kind of get a sense as to the work that I do. But the book is not really about that. The book is really about the journey that I took to get to where I'm at today. But Pearson was a big part of kind of learning the ropes when I came here in 1985.
So we're looking forward to having a deep conversation. And these kicks are from 1985, and it's a special year because I think somebody arrived in the country in that year.
September 27th, 85, brother.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so it's Scarborough. We do things differently. I know you've given talks everywhere, but you're back home now. So we got to bring the audience in a bit. So I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. I need to help me out here. So in my bag of goodies here, I have one item. Someone tell me what this is? What is it? Yeah, coconut. That's right, coconut, right? And we got the Hall family in the building. Welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. Second item in my bag is? That's right. That's right. That's right.
No, that's a banana. Whoever says plantain, you're out.
And third item in mine? All right. So the crowd, you guys did a good job. You got 3 for 3. But I'm going to change things around a little bit. So most of us see a banana, we see a coconut, and we see sugarcane. But Wes, I want to get you involved in a bit of reflection.
Yeah.
And we're going to go back in time. On your desk in Bay Street is this photo here. Most of us in the audience see these as items, but you have a personal attachment to them. So I just want you to sort of walk us back in time.
Well, I appreciate the props, man. That's pretty good. So when I grew up with so that picture is prominently displayed in my office on Bay Street, and it's really the tin shack that my grandmother raised us in Jamaica. And surrounded, that tin shack were plantations. Like it's a plantation house. So for those who work on the plantation, they would be given a place to live because they weren't paid enough. And so if you look back in the 40s and stuff like that, you see those slaves back in the day in the U.S. that are sharecroppers. That's essentially what my family was, or my grandmother was back then. And so the sugarcane plantation that you see, she worked on that. So depending on the season, she would do sugarcane, banana, or coconut. Those are the 3 seasons. And I remember being a kid, working with her on on that plantation, piling up sugarcane, piling up coconut. The guy would go up in the tree, kick the coconut down, and as a kid running around, putting them in piles. And the same thing with bananas, cutting the stalks down. And I would work in the banana plant with her, not a big plant, but with green bananas, you have to cut them. And when you cut the green bananas, there's like the sap that comes out of it. So she would be covered with sap at the end of the day on banana days. When it's a time for sugarcane, for example, they would burn the sugarcane to get rid of all the dryness and any animals and rodents and stuff like that in there. And she would have to cut that, and she would be covered with soot and black when she get home. And so I remember those days really fondly, and because I used to have a lot of fun working with her, quite frankly. But again, that was like, I lived in that house when I was, she brought me in when I was 18 months old. And that's me and her there in my son, the best. I was 4 in that image. And my grandmother was 60 years old. And when she was 60, and she was raising 10 grandkids in that house by herself. So she was a very strong person and very industrious. And I learned a lot of that in my early years, watching her hustle and juggle. And some of the things that she did, I do that today in my profession. One of the things my grandmother would do, because the plantation salary wasn't enough to feed all of us. So she actually would make puddings and sell them in the market. And we had the Golden Grove Market, which is where everything happens. Buses coming from back and forth, and they all stop there. But when she would make the pudding, her pudding will sell out like really, really quickly. As soon as she get there, it would be done. So what do you do if you're an entrepreneur? Essentially, she was an entrepreneur, but she didn't think she was. She was doing it out of necessity. What do you do if you're selling something and it sells out? You say raise the price, right? Well, so what else? What else do you do? So this man, you should be, if you're not an entrepreneur, you should be one. Because a lot of people, what they do is they make more. Well, here's the thing. She didn't have, because in that tin shack, we didn't have a kitchen. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water. So we had to, as kids, had to go to the bush, and we'd have to get wood, and would bring them, and that's what she would use. Like there would be a car rim, and she would put the wood on there, and that's where she would bake the pudding, okay? And to get the top of the pudding crusty, which a lot of people like it crusty, right? She would put a zinc over top of it, and she put the coal on top, and then that's how you get the top. They call it broil here in the oven system here, right? But she was doing that. So she would sell out, but there's only a limited amount of stove that you can use to cook. So she would just raise the price. And everybody would say, right? She's like, Mama Julie, I charge too much money. And they would cuss. And she's like, well, listen, the person behind you is going to pay what I'm asking. So move aside or pay. And they would pay, and they would pay. So when I started my own company, I started this company called Kingsdale Advisors on Bay Street. And I wanted to make it into a boutique firm and be the same use the same concept my grandmother taught me as a kid. I wanted the product, first of all, to be really good at what I did, right? So my grandmother was really good at baking pudding. She had the best pudding ever. So she was really good at it. So I had to be really good at what I did. And then I'm going to charge a lot of money for it, like a lot of money. And so I did that, and then people start to complain. But then I this thing called activism in Canada. Activism is, if I'm an investor in a publicly traded company, and let's say Neil is the CEO of that company that I invest in, and I'm not happy with him, I can get rid of him by hiring somebody to help me to do that, and that somebody is me. So I come up with strategy for an activist investor to get rid of him and put his own management team in place to run the company. But I made it so compelling that Neil would beg to hire me versus the other guy. And then I find both of them bidding as to who gets to hire me first. And we had a situation where people just kept on raising the price. And so ultimately, my firm became like the go-to firm still to this day. I started about 20 years ago as the number one firm in Canada with like 70% market share in what we do in that space. Because I was able to create something that was in demand and then made it scarce so that people would pay whatever I asked for to get it done.
Amazing lessons there. And I know you speak very fondly of your grandmother. I think you referred to her as Mama, right?
Yeah, Mama.
And your first 11 years were there. And I know,
yes.
I know your first 11 years were there. And then around 13 or so, things changed.
Yeah.
Tell us about Maypen and the shift from maybe St. Thomas. And tell the audience, for those who don't know what St. Thomas, the parish of St. Thomas, and the barracks and what that means.
I don't know if people know St. Thomas or from St. Thomas. They don't even admit it. Nobody would even admit that they're from St. Thomas. That's terrible. That just shows how it is. When I tell people I'm from St. Thomas, they're like, I don't think so. And for the Jamaican in the audience, what people say to me, only Obiaman are from St. Thomas. Right? That's what they say, right? And only people who do voodoo are from St. Thomas. That's what people say, okay? You're uneducated and you work Obia. That's what they say. That's why people don't admit that they're from St. Thomas. But I'm from St. Thomas. And I'm from like Golden Grove is like, the duppy capital of Jamaica, right? It's like right there in the middle of everything. And, so I left to live with my mama. That it's in the book in terms of that journey. And that was a tough part of my life. But that image that you see there, that actually was the clothes. I'm pretty sure that was the clothes that I wore when I came to Canada, because that was like, I was trash back then. Like white folks hear trash and think it's a bad word. That means I was fly, right? That was a fly outfit that I had. You see the stand? Like you can't beat that guy. That guy's like, I'm the man. And it's just like the other image that you have of the front of the book, whereby I put the clothes on, and it's like, and from then, my grandmother I was poor, but she always wanted us to have pride in ourselves. So even though I didn't wear shoes back then, on Sundays and special occasions, I would be dressed up, and you have to just carry yourself really, really well. And again, all those lessons I've learned all through my life, and I took it with me, because when I got my first job on Bay Street, it was in the mailroom of a law firm. And I wore a suit to work. And it was unusual because everyone in the mailroom was wearing jeans and t-shirt. And I was wearing a suit. And the dudes in the mailroom were making fun of me. They're like, people are going to think you're a lawyer. And I'm like, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? I shouldn't look like I'm a mailroom guy. And again, when you read the book, you'll see what I mean. Like that, as a result of me wearing a suit, like the law firms had, I know I'm all over the place, but the law firms had like this thing whereby the lawyers don't fraternize with the staff, with the help. You're not allowed to. And the associates don't, the students don't. But when I'm not pushing my mail carts and I'm walking around with my suit on, these guys used to think I was an articling student. And they would start talking to me. And they would start dropping terms like M&A. And I'm like, what the hell is M&A? Right? Then I went up the stairs to the library, mergers and acquisition. I said, Richard, I found out, I met the librarian and got friendly with him. What's M&A? And he said, okay, go to that section of the library, look up mergers and acquisition. And I started to read about mergers and acquisitions. And all the different language that they would put in, I started to read up about them. You know that Michael J. Fox movie, The Secret to My Success, where he pretended to be this big shot guy, but he was a mailroom guy? That's how I felt. But then that helped me, because when I finally got an opportunity to get interviewed to be the right hand to the General Counsel of Canvas Global, had zero experience. And I went in there, there's the General Counsel, there's the HR manager, And then they start asking me questions, and I start using terms like M&A. And I start using all the fancy terms that those people are dropping. And guess what? I got the job, right? And but it started off by me wearing a suit to push a mail cart. And somebody asked me today, how did you do it all? How did it happen? I was able to take advantage of every single opportunity that's presented to me. And some of those opportunities were dead end, but I explored them. And but I was able to wrestle them down and to take advantage of them. And a lot of people, as you go through life, you're confronted with tons of opportunities. Tons. All of us are in our daily lives. But we don't know it because it's not what we're looking for. And so that mailroom job, for example, most people wouldn't take it, right? That chicken job that, in the book, right? You're probably going to ask me about that. I was a chicken catcher. I remember when I left home and I got a job, and I'm like, I need a job and I need to work. And I went to Maple Ledge Farm. My buddy Steve, hooked me up with his mom, and his mom drove me, gave me a job. And I went into Maple Ledge Farm, and they gave me the job. The guy said, okay, you're going to wear a white hairnet, and you're going to wear a white coat. And you're going to go on the assembly line. And that was like a teenager, just finished high school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there was an assembly line with all these old men on the line, and that's their job. And guess what my job was? He gave me a vacuum, and they said, you see those chickens coming down there? The ass is down here. You're going to stick the vacuum up there. You're going to suck everything out. And that's going to be my job with 2 15-minute break, one in the morning, one in the afternoon with a half-an-hour break. That was my job that they said I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And I'm sitting there going, that's it. Okay? Now, I looked at my watch, and I'm like, half an hour doing that. I'm like, I can't do this for a living. Right? So I went to the supervisor. I said, I can't do this. And the man said, okay, let me bring you to the HR department. They'll find you something else. And then they said, okay, we got a perfect job for you. Don't have to do anything with the vacuum anymore. Now, he took me to the back, and he said, you see that truck over there? Yeah. And those crates, yeah, they're live chickens in them. And I want you to grab the chickens. I want you to put them down on the assembly line, neck down, and they're going to go down there and get their heads chopped off. And that's what you're going to do. But the chickens knew what was going to happen. So the chickens start fighting me, scratching my hands and everything. But I couldn't delay the assembly line because the guys with the vacuums were down there waiting for me, right? So I had to and I'm looking, half an hour later, can't do this.
And Wes,
so I am a quitter. Those two jobs last me an hour. But here's the point. Here's the point. That was an opportunity that was presented to me that I wrestled down. It could be that I potentially could be the manager of the plant and the CEO of that company ultimately, if that was up my alley. Because where you start doesn't really matter. It's where you finish. So to me, ultimately this wasn't for me, but I tried it. And it's the same thing somebody said, the mailroom, I wouldn't do that. But look at where it led me by going down to a position whereby everybody goes, I wouldn't do that because it's just too menial.
And a lot of that journey starts here in Canada. Yeah. And we're going to go over in just a moment a bit about your arrival. There's a particular moment in time where I see the way you calculate, and it happens around 13 to 15. Now, I just want you to unpack. There's a moment in time where you have to calculate if you spend a night on the street, what life will look for you. So I wouldn't mind you unpacking that for the audience here. Going back to Maypen, that very night, how you made the decision and who you stayed with and how that actually led you to Canada.
So I lived with my grandmother. I lived with my grandmother until I was 11. And 11, my mom showed up and said, hey, you need to come live with me. And I thought I won the lottery because of all these siblings that my grandmother was raising for my mom, I was the lucky one. And then I realized later on I really didn't win the lottery because my mom was incredibly abusive for for years. And at 13, when I just couldn't, she couldn't hurt me anymore. She just like, okay, yeah, man, no. And she threw my bag out. It was a straw bag, and she threw it out of the house. And she go, you now on your own. So I was 13 years old. And I remember how liberating it was for me, because here I am, didn't know what I was going to do, didn't know where I was going to go. It was not like you have a telephone that you can call your buddy, but I was in school. So I couldn't really call my school friends and say, could I come stay at your house? I had to figure out where I'm going to go, where I'm going to spend the night. And there's a stigma to homelessness in Jamaica. So if you even spend a night outside, and you're homeless, and that will plague you for the rest of your life. So I had to, while I was walking down the street with my straw bag, I am calculating who's the first person I'm going to go to, who's the first door I'm going to knock on to ask to put me up for the night at least. And so I had to figure out, okay, can't be anybody that I went to school with, because they had to now get their parents, and chances they're poor enough that they wouldn't be able to afford it. So I had to get somebody, potentially a male, and single. Because if they had to now go to their wife or their girlfriend, they're probably going to go, no, I don't want them, no kid in my house, right? So I had to figure out, okay, who do I know that's live on their own? That's a guy, and I'm going to go to that house first. But I'm running against the clock because it's getting dark, and I can't be going to people's house when it's dark. So, and I had to walk there because I had no money for taxis to get to where am I going to get to. So I had to calculate all this stuff while I'm walking down that road, and then figure out, okay, option 1, option 2, option 3. And ultimately, I lived jumping around from place to place from 13 to 15. Didn't have a steady place to live. And then at 13, this foster family took me in at 15, and I lived with them for a year until I came here to live with my dad and my stepmom.
Amazing. And we're going to get to the theme of having thick elephant skin in a moment, because I think that theme comes out throughout the book. And I hope the audience here will learn a couple of things from you, in particular about how that's benefited you even on Bay Street. But I want to continue on with the journey. And King Turbo, I see you taking a break there and relaxing as well, because I know it's been a long night. But I know you know something that a lot of the audience doesn't know, which is, what was the vibe in Malvern in 1985? Set the mood. So Wes, you arrive on a Friday, and on Monday you start at Pearson, and it's smooth sailing, right?
Is that Billy D. Williams? That's like, that guy's handsome, man.
There's a gold chain they can't see.
So I used to have a gold chain, the one that's hanging down there, and it's called the Don on it. And so September 27th, 85, I came here on a Friday. That's a Friday. And I was in school on Monday. And they kind of slipped me in the ESL program there because of the heavy Jamaican accent that I have. And I remember like putting my hand up in class, and people like, I answered the question because I thought I was so smart. And everybody just bust out laughing. And they said, say it again, that's funny. Because I didn't know until I realized that over time, the Jamaican accent was cool. So instead of trying to get rid of it, I put it on even harder. I remember going to, so when I came here, it was in the fall, and the trees were looking beautiful, absolutely beautiful. You got to appreciate the fact that I've never seen snow in my life, and all you guys who came from Jamaica, and you get it. But it was so beautiful. The trees changed the colors and everything, and then the leaves go, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is the leaves all gone? It doesn't happen like that in Jamaica. And then snow starts, and then it keeps snowing. Like snow, the first day was cool, and but after a while it just kept coming, right? And I'm like, there's no way that I'm gonna be lasting like this, And my neighbor, as my dad and my stepmom could tell you, like my neighbors was working nights, and there's still neighbors there working nights, and the guy was working nights, and I knocked on his door. I went and knocked on his door, The guy came out, there was sleep in his eyes. I said, Tony, could you take me to school? It's too cold. I want him to drive me to school. And he drove me to school, right? He did that. Now, how many people would actually go ahead and do that? Have the guts to go and ask for something like that? But I kind of appreciate the fact that I have Tony take me to school every single day. I got to figure this out, right? First, my dad wasn't cool about, I couldn't tell him that I asked a neighbor to take me to school. He wouldn't be happy about that. So I kind of go, all right, I got to figure this out. And the walk from Malvern, because, everybody knows Pearson's in Malvern. So we lived at Nielsen and McLevin, right? And Topscott is where Pearson was, right? And that's like a 10-minute walk. Maybe 15 if you're lazy, right? And I did not want to do that walk at all, right, in the wintertime. But I kind of got used to it, got over it, and I don't want to embarrass my dad, but my dad went to Canadian Tire to buy this Canadian Tire winter coat that had this hood that goes like for a mile in front of you. Okay, and you got to understand, like in 1985, what outfits were they rocking, right? LL Cool J was big. All these guys were rocking all this preppy outfit and stuff. And I was wearing this big ass winter coat, from Canadian Tire to go to school. And the first thing I did when I get to school is just put it in the closet someplace and hide it because I couldn't walk around with that. That's not cool. But that was it. That was my introduction to Canada, to what life is like in Canada. But when I came here, I realized that I was not going to fail in this country. And here's the interesting thing, because what I saw was a very different life than I had in Jamaica. And I saw, success because I came to Pearson Airport. My dad came to pick me up, and my stepmom and my siblings, and they drove this big car, Betsy. Carl's called Betsy. It's a big car. And I got on the 401, all these highways and stuff like that. And when we moved in 1985 to Malvern, it was still a subdivision under development. There was like about 5 or 10 houses in there. So it's all like dirt and dust when it's sunny.
There was no Malvern Town Center.
And there was no Malvern Town Center, by the way, guys. There was no Malvern Town Center back in the day. And so I got there and I'm like, oh man, this is a nice big house. My dad's got a family, he's got a nice car, he's got a nice job. I want to be like him when I grow up.
And one thing I think, and we're honored to have your father here, one thing I really appreciated was the fact that you said your father went to school to advocate to make sure that you weren't going to stay in ESL. And he went twice to make sure that didn't happen.
Well, I think that's the thing. If you don't have people advocating for you, that you're going to find that, because what happens in the education system in Ontario? They have this thing called streaming. And a whole generation of Black people got streamed. And what do? Especially when you come from Jamaica or anywhere in the Caribbean, they put you back a grade, first of all. And then it was the 3 streams that we had back in the day: basic, general, and advanced. And they start with basic. And then if you have nobody advocating for you, you got to continue with basic. And what happens when you graduate because you just have to have a pulse to graduate when you have basic, right? Yeah. And then you can't go to university because you're not qualified because you have a basic degree. And then you don't get the plum jobs. You can't be on Bay Street. So you can't live in the fancy neighborhoods. Yep. You can't fly in the front of the plane. So you have to be a chicken catcher. You have to be a mailroom guy, but you don't have the ability to move up because that's your station in life. And so that's really what happened, to me in the early days, and having, my dad and knowing the system here to advocate kind of made sure that helped me along the way to kind of move up.
So a couple themes I want to double down on, particularly for a lot of us who grew up in public housing in the communities here.
You have 6 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yep.
There's a man trying to tell you.
Okay, good. We're running on Scarborough time, my man.
All right. I told him, I said, he came and said, dude, this is a Jamaican event, okay? Just put your clock away, man.
But no, so what I want to double down, because a lot of your gift for a lot of us is that a lot of us can see ourselves in you, and that goes beyond race. But a few things, like a lot of things here, like for example, you worked at Bargain Heralds, I worked at Byway, you did the Toronto Star, I did the Toronto Sun. You came from Galloway, you went from Malvern. I thought people in Malvern at the time from Galloway were rich because, like you said, I saw these bungalows and home ownership, which to us was like foreign, right? So I think in the audience here, though, what I want to double down in a moment on is you were able to put yourself in position. You know, from Scarborough to get downtown, it's a different world, and you get in those towers, and it's a whole different set of language that people use, right? And you're able to navigate that. But nobody does it alone. So this next chapter is about being around super people, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
And I want to set in 92. What was happening in 92, my man, King Turbo? Oh, man. Christine, you remember this?
Tunes, man, tunes.
So in 92, and so a couple things. One thing is, for some of us here, and I know that, one of the reasons I look up to Wes as well is because as someone who grew up without a father, for me, holding down a family and finding examples of people who weren't going to their second or third marriage, and I'm not here to judge anyone who's in that position, but in my front row is my wife. We went to high school in Scarborough together. We've been together 26 years. So to find, yeah. But I know, and I want you to unpack that, because I think for a lot of, and I'm going to focus on young men in particular, we're surrounded in environments where they glamorize a different lifestyle. And we know when we go home, you're only successful because you can actually do a few things. So I want to just spend a moment talking about with Christine and the role she's played, because it's a shared success.
Yeah, so the picture in the inset is the picture when we got married in 1992. So June 6, 1992, we got married. She was 19, I was 21. And you know, we dated for 6 months, and then 6 months later we got married, right? So all these people say you gotta try the thing first and all this kind of stuff. That's nonsense, okay? So we got married in June 6, 1992. And so when I came here, I had an obligation to my family back home, especially to my grandmother. I wanted to get as many of my family members from Jamaica as I possibly can to Canada. So when I was about 18 years old, I applied for pretty much all of them. And then I was talking to my mom, and I said, listen, you know, I just got married, so just hold off, you know, bringing the rest of the family, because I had to apply for my mom, because that's the family connection, because we didn't have the same last name. None of us did. And, you know, so I said, you know, wait. So June 6th, we got married. A month later, I got a call from the airport. And it was my mother on the phone. I got a call. And she said, Wes, it's me. I was like, yeah, hi. She's like, we're at the airport. I'm like, what airport? The airport in Toronto in Canada, Pearson. You need to come get us. It was my mother, my eldest sister, Barbara, my younger sister, Natalie, my brother, Ian, my younger brother, and my brother, Michael. 5 of them to come live with us after I just got married for a month. And I went downstairs. I was upstairs. I went downstairs. We had a 2-bedroom. And I went to Christine and said, guess what? It's like, what? Now, she's never met my family. Okay, we have, my family is here from Jamaica, and they're coming to live with us. So I went to the airport, picked them all up, and I brought them, and I said, Christine, this is my mother. This is my brother, Ian. This is my brother, Michael. This is my sister, Joan, Barbara, and this is my sister, Natalie. And the next day, we had to go shopping for winter coats and food. And I had to enroll my 15-year-old brother, sister, and my 16-year-old brother in school then, on Monday. And it's an instant family that we inherited that we now have to look after. And so that's how our relationship started. It started like that 1 month after we got married, and we're young people. And so I was still working in the mailroom. Christine was a legal secretary. She was making way more money than me. And we kind of made it work. And they lived with us for pretty much a year. You know, so we didn't have a honeymoon. We didn't do any of those things. We just spent the time making sure the kids were in school, making sure that because my mom didn't work, and making sure that my sisters found my younger sister couldn't work because she was going to school, and my older sister trying to find her a job and that she could do and stuff. So that's how the relationship started. That's just part of the journey that we went through. Went through a lot together, and ultimately, my success was because of her. Because if she decided to pack it in when that happened, well, my life would be very different today. But we kind of sat down together and go, okay, let's figure it out. And we figured it out. And there's a lot of things that goes on through your life. A lot of people see the end product, but they don't see the journey and how you get there. And so when she decided that, when we started having kids, and she go, you know what, I'm going to stay home and look after the kids. Or even when I said, I'm going to quit my job to start my own company. And we sat down and talked about it. And the response was, okay, here's the deal. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to go back to work, or you're going to go to work, but let's do it. And we stacked hands, and she gave me 100% support. I'll look after the kids. I'll do things because when you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot of long hours, late nights. We were living at the time we lived downtown, then we moved to a new market, and then I had to commute. The commutes were long. I used to get up at 4:00 in the morning. I did it for like 10 years, and just back and forth. I traveled a lot, and somebody had to make sure the family's together. And so we have 5 kids together, and I think they're pretty decent kids. Some of them are here tonight, right? Brogan, are you a decent guy? Well, he's questioning.
I wouldn't even say decent. I'd say exceptional. And this is a point I want to drill down. Within one generation, you've come so far along, and people like us are benefiting from that. I want the youth in particular to hear this. So Brenton, Wes's older son, my son, who's
number 2.
Oh, sorry, number 2. Brenton in the audience there. Yes. So my son is 10 years old. He wants to be a sports agent. When we grew up in the neighborhood we did, I didn't have the network. But now I'm already seeing if I can call Wes and talk to Wes's son, and his son takes the time out and authentically cares about, he connected my son to another sports agent. And he's 10 years old. So imagine this kid at 10 is getting access to things that a lot of us may not get. And I just wanted you to spend a moment talking to the people in the audience here who may not have those networks. And if you could just drop a couple of gems of wisdom on how you get access to those networks.
Yeah, it's without a network, it's impossible. It's impossible to be successful in this country. It's just not. Those of, Scarborough and downtown, it's like 2 different worlds. I remember when I went to get that mailroom job downtown, and I was looking at all these tall buildings because I didn't see them up close and personal like that. It was like, and I went into the elevator, it's a Commerce Court West on the 13th floor. My ears popped when I went on the elevator. And I stepped out of the elevator, and it's like I stepped out of an episode of LA Law, or for you young people, Suits. Right? It was like, and I'm like, this is a different world. It's a completely different world. And then I start to realize that there's a way the system is played. Is a game. In the corporate world, is a game. The reason why they use the same analogy in sports, like you got to win, and you got to get a home run, and you got to dunk it. They use the same terms in the corporate world as they do in sports because it's a sport. And a lot of people don't really want to play by the rules. They go, I'm not have to do that. I don't have to do that. You have to understand what the rules are. And so I was able to figure that out. And one of the things I figured out was networking is absolutely critical to get to that next level. It's almost like everybody has a golden key but you. And you have to befriend the person with the golden key to let you in. And once they let you in, you have to work relationships within the system to get to that next level. And so our people, unfortunately, especially people from underserved communities, don't appreciate that part of it. Why do you think folks who are wealthy send their kids to private schools? It's not just because they can afford it. It's because of the network that they're exposing their kids to. Why do you think they all live in the same neighborhood? When I went to my neighborhood, a lot of people go, West, there's no Black people in this neighborhood. Why'd you go there? That's where the power is. That's where I can walk down the street and go, hey, There's Jim, there's Jack. He's the CEO of this bank. He's the CEO of that institution. And then, so when I started Black North, for example, and this came into play exactly then. I started Black North, I didn't even start Black North, actually. It was before that. I wrote an article in the Globe and Mail. When I look in the mirror, see George Floyd, it was the title. And it was talking about my experience as a Black person. And then all those leaders read it, that I did business with all these years. And the first call I got was the CEO of CIBC, Victor Dodig. And Victor called me and said, hey, I didn't know. How can I help you? And then Prem Watsa, who is the Warren Buffett of Canada, the most notorious and successful investor this country has ever seen, called me up and said, Wes, can I come over to your house? I need to talk to you. And he sat down in my backyard and he goes, how can I help you? We had 500 companies who decided to sign CEOs that said, I'm going to sign a pledge to hire 3.5% of my boards will be Black people, 3.5% of my C-suite will be Black people, 5% of my students will be Black people, 3% of my sponsorship dollars will be spent in the Black community, and so on and so forth. They signed it because of those relationships and connections. And I was in the same neighborhood as them, and they could relate. So if we isolate ourselves outside of those environments, we're not going to benefit. And we have to appreciate how the game is played and play it. So relationships, connections, young people, all I encourage you to do is reach out to people, follow them on social media, especially now. Back in the day, we didn't have social media to follow people on. Michael Lee Chin was kind of like a guy that I looked up to. But I couldn't follow him on social media because there was no social media. Today, you have social media. And you can reach out to people, you can see what they're doing, and you can send them a DM and say, hey, I liked your book, or I like this that you did, I like the article that you wrote. People like to hear that stuff, and it brings you to a completely different level.
So I know we've got a lot of content to cover, and your story is so inspirational, and that's why there's many chapters here in the book. But I do think we want to insert a couple of surprises. So we actually want to test your Scarborough tonight.
Yes.
And to help us do that, we got Scarborough spots. Anyone heard of Scarborough spots before? So Craig, come up here. You got a moment here. And we're going to try and load you up here. And we've got some prizes here, and I'm just going to leave them actually right in the middle here, Wes, because I think you're going to participate in this. You might have to go without the slides.
How do you get this one?
I think we might have to go without slides. You might have to ask the questions without them. Yeah.
All right, how you guys doing tonight? So I guess he asked you guys if you heard. Am I good? Can you? Yeah. Oh. All right, 1 second. So we're gonna do some Scarborough Spots trivia, and we're gonna see if Wes is really from Scarborough. So no one shout out the answers. We're gonna give you guys a chance to guess. He's gonna pick someone in the audience. If he can't guess the answer, you're gonna get a chance to win one of the prizes that he would get. So we're gonna go with the first one. Lily Singh went to which high school in Scarborough? A, West Hill, B, Lester B. Pearson, C,
Pearson.
Mother Teresa,
Pearson,
or D, Scarborough Township?
Pearson.
So we got Pearson. So you got the first one. All right. This station is popular for their Jamaican beef patties. A, Kennedy Station, B, Markham Station, C, Midland Station, or D, Warden Station?
I'm going to say Warden Station, man.
All right. All right, take a look at this picture. Which mall is this mall? Parkway Mall, Morningside Mall, Malvern Mall, or Warden Woods?
It's not, I got to say Morningside Mall.
Is it? Oh!
Over to the crowd.
So guys, you're going to have to pick someone in the audience.
Pick someone from the audience.
Huh?
To help you out.
Okay.
Hey!
You got to hook them up, Wes. You got to hook them up.
There you go, man. Get your, I did that purposely, bro. I did that purposely for you. Purposely. Thank you for that. Okay.
There we go. We got 2 more. So which mall is this? Or where is this location? Civic Center?
Scarborough Town Center, man.
All right, he knew right away.
Scarborough Town Center.
There we go. And our last one is, what bus route in Malvern is also a popular fast food item? It's in the hundreds. It's a number, like the 85, the 69, 68, 34.
89.
89?
Yeah.
Nope. Does anyone know?
Wes gets the pick, man.
Yes, you up there. Yeah.
Yes,
Nugget.
sir. That's it, 131.
You gotta hook him up, Wes. Hook him up, man.
Go deep, baby. All right. Who else? Come on, go deep.
So Scarborough, how Scarborough is Mr. Wes Hall? To close out the night, I've got 2 mentors who took a risk on me. Wes, I reached out to, and then we were able to collaborate, and he taught the very first course at Rotman called Black Entrepreneurship and Leadership in Canada. It was his first time teaching, and it was probably the best MBA course in the history of that school. The other person who recently took a chance on me, a kid from Galloway, to be your Dean of Student Experience and Wellbeing, was our principal, Wisdom Teti, who's an exceptional leader. And to close us out, I'd like to invite him to close us out here.
Well, good evening again, and thank you all for coming. Hasn't this been a wonderful engagement? You know, there's always a sense of pride when you can welcome your own back home and do so feeling that the life that they've led is a replica of what you folks lead. And that tells you about the possibilities that are within reach. And what you've heard from Wes are a couple of things. The importance of community and family. Because that is where relationships start. That is where they are nurtured. And that is where your values are honed, that you take with you forever, right? And this evening, we've seen what it means to come from what seems like an impossible place and be able to be on the highest of pedestals because you believe in yourself, that you know you're capable of. You don't allow anyone to tell you that you cannot, because you're grounded in a sense of self that is powerful. And that sense of self comes from the fact that you have a community around you that says you may just have that shoe to wear on Sundays your best, but that does not fully define you. What defines you is what is inside of here. That sense of pride, that sense of who you are. And knowing who you are is what allows you to go into that mailroom and say, what? I'm not going to be defined by this space. It's too small for me. I'm going to start from here, but I'm going to end up where those folks are and beyond. And in fact, and for the young people here, I know a lot of you hear what is impossible. This is not for the kinds of you. This place is not one for folks like me. What you're hearing today is that you define what is rightfully yours, and you don't allow somebody else to do that for you. Because when you allow someone to define you, they can shrink you as much as they want. But when you allow yourself to do what you know you are capable of, the world is your territory to play in. So I hope as you leave here this evening that you're inspired by this story. But you're not inspired by it in a way that says, I was there with Wes, I heard the story. You're saying that this is the wind behind me that is going to catapult me to the possibilities that make me the multiple versions of Wes. Because one of the things that you hear from successful folks is, sure, Wes has done a lot he's proud of, but I think he'd be even more proud to say, I see people like me when I turn around. It's not a lonely place because I've got community. I've got others who are able to exemplify what I am. Because I am not an exception, I'm exceptional. And there are many more who are exceptional and extraordinary. And let's try together to bring all of those talented, extraordinary people into the fold. Because what they do for our community is that we're not going to be depending on one person. We're going to be depending on multiple people, which lightens the load for all of us because you have your collective arm wrapped around one another, supporting one another, and lifting one another up. So I hope that you leave here this evening feeling that your sense of worth is being validated by the experience of someone who walked your shoes many years ago and did not allow himself to turn what my people say, don't turn your sleeping place, or don't turn where you fall into your sleeping place. Get up and move on because you're capable of doing so. So on a night like this, as we welcome one of our own back home, and it's just great to see all the Pearson alumni, all the current students in our neighborhood, and for me, just proud to see our students who are mentors and mentees in our community, who are the future leaders of this community. They're the people who put Scarborough on the map. And the advantage that we have here that is not replicated in a lot of places is that the world is here. The relationships that he was talking about are nurtured here in places that are not defined by the fact that you are here and I'm aspiring to be you. We're doing this together, and that has authenticity to it. So if you folks bind together and be one another's keeper and support one another and open those avenues for the networks that enable you to soar, you would, in fact, be, like I said, manifold versions of Wes. So Wes, thank you so much for making time for our community. Thank you for letting us see. Thank you for letting us see what we're capable of when community comes together. That guy who drove you to school that day in the snow may not know the impact of what they did that day, but it continues to reverberate every day. By the way, I say to folks, I don't know whether my tropical blood will ever get used to winter, so I'm with you, brother. But it's good to be able to see that community makes an impact on folks like you. So for those of you who have come here, I know there are a lot of you from community housing who are here today with us. I want you to know that we are all committing to one another as a community and being there to support one another. An institution like UTSC, as exemplified by Imani mentors, does not see itself as disconnected from community. We are who we are because we're part of this community. This community defines us. We are proud of our community. We know there are a lot of advantages that we have in this community because all of you talented people make our community shine. And all of you, by the heart that you're able to display in different areas, come together to support one another. That is an advantage that we have. You live in this community with a lot of people from different parts of the world, be they ESL or be they as pure of an accent as you become. We all are exemplifying the world that is out there. So when you leave Scarborough and you go to the world, you in fact have a lot of experience that you are able to use to serve you well. So our values, our connections, our commitments, and our sense of pride in who we are is what is going to carry us through. So thank you all this evening for coming. Thank you to my colleagues in the Office of Student Experience and Wellbeing. Thank you for all my colleagues who are making sure that the equipment is working here. I know a lot of folks have made this thing come together. And thank you, Mr. DJ, for giving us reminiscences of the past. And so now, I'd like to invite to the stage Azim Haq from Pearson class of 2002 to help us do something that may be a surprise to you,
Uh-oh.
but it's not going to be a surprise that you want to run away from. It's a surprise that will make you want to run back here every opportunity you get in Scarborough. So Azim, help me with this.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Azim Huck. I graduated from Lester B. Pearson Collegiate in 2002. Just a quick question. Besides Wes, who went to Pearson here? Wow, okay, so we got a lot of people here. On behalf of the alumni at Pearson, we'd like to, we're very happy with Wes, who graduated from Pearson actually in 1988. We hope his story will continue to inspire future generations, especially the youth in Malvern, to not only dream big, but to also give back to the community. So we have a special gift for Wes to help him remember his time in Malvern and at Pearson. Inside is a customized hoodie.
Look at that.
And a very special hat, courtesy of Scarborough Spots, that says Malvern on the.
There's only 50 of those.
Only 50.
So Wes, thank you for all that you do. And go Bengals.
So again, thank you all for coming. I hope you've all felt inspired. He's gotten medals of honors. He's got 4 doctorate degrees. Here he got a patty and a ting, and we linked him up with gear, because that's how we do it in Scarborough. We keep it humble.
All right. You killed it.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. Very kind words. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you. Huh? Did you? Yeah, man.
One thing I remember about you
Yeah.
is